Oh God. All right.
I hope you're really nervous, because you should be. I hope you're really nervous, because you should be.
I'm scared.
Hi, Luke Casey.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us on Colony Kids SOS again. It is a program where we invite friends of ours, creatives, designer, artists, people within our community to come and talk about their practice, their craft, creation, what's happening in the city, and especially in times of crisis. Today we have with us Luke Casey, a very good friend of many people, but also a very good friend of mine, a very old friend of mine. And why don't we just start with you introducing yourself?
Okay. So my name's Luke Casey, and I am a photographer and a video director, and I kind of do some art stuff too. And I've lived in Hong Kong for about 7 years, so I'm about to get my residency card. And I'm from the UK, and I bounce back and forth between these two places. But obviously recently there's been a bit less of that, so yeah. But I'm in Hong Kong at the moment, which is nice.
Yay! So how have you been feeling?
Yeah, I've been feeling okay. I feel like the mood fluctuates quite a lot, from like intense fear and panic, and then feeling like, oh, maybe things are okay, you know. And right now I'm feeling quite relaxed and quite chilled, and yeah, it's a funny time, isn't it, we're living through right now. But I really appreciate the sort of change in pace, and how things have kind of slowed down for a lot of people, and the hamster wheel has kind of come to a screeching halt, which has been really good. So yeah, the pace I appreciate, and coming back to Hong Kong, because I wasn't here when everything started, but it feels, yeah, like it's operating on a slightly like slower frequency or something, which has been quite cool. Yeah,
I can imagine, because you had distance. You moved away back to London. Is it end of? I don't even know. Time
January.
is like totally confusing. And then you got back here like more than 2 weeks ago. But you've been in the city 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you really have that. You've had that distance, and then now you're suddenly back in a city, but at a different pace. Like, whereas the rest of us have just evolved with it.
Yeah.
Is it a stark contrast?
It definitely feels different, but it also, it feels really nice. I'm sure something's happened, like, to the air, you know. I think like Hong Kong is usually this time of year like really sweaty and horrible and muggy, and it's been really nice.
No, I feel
because
the
I reckon
same.
the factories are stopped or something in China or whatever. But
the air is really, really clean. It feels fresh.
Yeah, so that's really nice. And I mean, because I came back, I had 2 weeks of quarantine in Hong Kong. There's like a compulsory quarantine. I think it was also quite intense coming out of that, because it was 2 weeks on my own and just locked in a room with a window that didn't open, and I couldn't even walk into the corridor or whatever. And so when I finally kind of escaped the room, it just like Hong Kong felt so much more like HD or something. You know, it was like it was so exciting getting out and kind of being back and being free to walk around the streets and stuff. But yeah, obviously everyone's wearing masks, which wasn't happening when I left. Different types of masks.
How were your 2 weeks in quarantine? Like, did you read, or how did you spend it? How did you evolve as a human being?
Yeah, I did evolve a bit, actually. I read loads, and I watched loads of films, because I was there for 14 days, so it was 14 movies, one film per day.
Wow.
I read a lot. I did some like self-discovery stuff. It was quite a trippy experience. I'm like a very social person. I like to see people and talk to people and have a drink with people or whatever. And being forced to be on my own for 2 weeks in a room was kind of interesting. and I was doing kind of these exercises to, I don't know, self-improvement exercises and things like that. And yeah.
Are you willing to talk about what you mean by self-improvement exercises?
Yeah, I mean, I did therapy while I was in there. I had like a therapist calling me up like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because I just felt like maybe this is a good opportunity while like the world is on pause, and while I'm kind of sat here on my own to kind of do a bit of sort of maintenance, like mind maintenance or whatever, you know. And it was like, yeah, it was amazing, because I was chatting to this guy for an hour 3 times a week, and yeah, it felt like kind of untying some knots and just like placing everything on the table, pulling things out of my mind and spreading it out and figuring out what's what and what's good, what's bad. And but yeah, it was really intense, you know, but overall I think it was a really good exercise, and I recommend it to anyone.
Me too. I recommend it.
If you want my guy's number, just the number's appearing at the bottom. Yeah. But
cool, thanks. How did you? So you're a photographer and video director.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us how you got into that? I mean, I think I've seen your early, home garage kind of made stuff, which was already amazing. Do you want to tell us how you, got into this?
Well, I feel like I can remember like being bought a camera, like it had a robot. It was like a plastic robot camera that my mum bought for me, my parents bought for me, and I was just sort of running around taking photos on that from quite a young age. And then the video that you're talking about is the first video I ever made, called Life on Four Wheels, which was a skate video that I made in my hometown of Plymouth on like a high-8 camera, video camera. Because I think growing up in Plymouth, I spent a lot of my time trying to figure out who I was and not really knowing. And then skating happened, and it was the first time that I became like part of a scene or a movement or whatever. And I was really bad at skating, but I was quite good at filming stuff.
Documenting.
I realized I was like, I'm not landing any of these tricks, and but yeah, I became the guy that was filming everybody, and it was that kind of Jackass era where we were doing like dumb stuff, like throwing ourselves into bushes and everything. So yeah, it was like years of filming, and then when I finished school, we were like allowed to do like a work experience thing, and I got work experience in Edit Suite, and this guy basically just showed me like how to edit it. So I like kind of finished this week of work experience with this VHS tape, and then did a screening at my house, and everyone was like kind of blown away by it. But yeah, so that was how I learned. I mean, I still feel like editing, I learned a lot from that era of filming skating, and I think my stuff still looks a bit like a skate video. It's all a bit wobbly and zoomy and not the best quality all the time, if you know what I mean. I guess lo-fi might be the word. But yeah, that was kind of my foundation, really, was shooting that stuff. And then I had a break from video for a really long time, and photography. I did a whole bunch of other things, and then it was like later down the line I realized maybe I should go back to that, because that was kind of fun, so that's kind of what happened.
How would you define your work now?
I actually had to write this down in a bio about me thing recently, and I kind of wrote a couple of words which were like, I think I said sensitive, surreal, and silly, which I think like most of my work, if I look at it, like would have one of those elements, if not like a couple of them or all of them. Like things are a bit silly, but I think there's usually a sensitivity there, and I think it's moving in a kind of surreal direction. But yeah, like most of the stuff I used to do was kind of documentary, and then recently I think I was like pursuing like truth or whatever, and then obviously things have changed, so it's kind of, yeah, it's sort of evolving into something that feels a bit weirder. It's like, it looks like the truth, but it's kind of a strange version of it or something, if that makes sense.
Why would you use the word silly? I mean, yeah, I guess I see like surreal, and I'd say like dreamscapey, but how would you define silly in your work, or as an example?
Well, I feel like I play a lot when I'm making stuff. Like I always feel like I'm playing, and I think there is often like some humor like underlying, or like a silly element, or like a funny element quite often, you know. Like even if I'm doing something serious, there'll usually be like a funny side to it, because I'm quite a silly person, you know. And yeah, I just think there's like a humor or presence of maybe some comedy underlying. Yeah, I don't know if it always comes through, but it's definitely like a part of me, and I think it shows itself sometimes. I guess like Leo, the collaborations with Leo, okay, like all of that was super silly, and even like the dream like the recent Dreamier stuff has like a kind of funny, like people watch it and kind of laugh, you know. There's usually like a funny bit, so yeah, that's where silly comes from, I guess.
Well, do you have key influences or people you really look at in terms of?
Yeah, like I guess like I started out as a photographer. For years I was taking pictures, and I remember, you know, Martin Parr, who's like a famous British photographer. I remember seeing his stuff and being like, whoa, like this is so great. And then discovering like Iraqi later and being obsessed with Iraqi. So like they were kind of like the photographers that kind of inspired me from quite an early age. But then, like, I don't know, it's funny because sometimes I'll find myself, there's things that you just grow up with that at the time don't seem that important. But you know, my mum used to show us loads of like really camp musicals, like from like the 60s and 70s and stuff, like these really colourful musicals, and at the time it was just the things we watched when we were kids. But then it's like some of those elements have started coming out in certain projects that I've been doing recently, and I'd really like to make a musical, you know. So yeah, I think that.
Can you give an example of how that came out in one of your recent works?
I guess, yeah, because we used to watch, they were like these big stage productions, you know, so like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, Calamity Jane, Singing in the Rain, all these types of things, where there's like a backdrop that's painted like a real space, but you can kind of tell when you're watching it this isn't actually real. It's like a huge studio. So I've been doing some stuff in the studio recently where I'm trying to draw out that idea of like being in a real fake space and stuff, you know. But also like music, I guess, like I've done a lot of kind of music things. Like I've been moving into music videos. Like last year I did my first music video, and I love karaoke, so karaoke is kind of often present in certain projects that I've done, and I think it's all building up to just like a giant musical, basically. I think all the elements are kind of coming together. But yeah, it's like working in studio as well. Obviously the scale gets bigger, and you're collaborating with a bunch of people, set designers and all that stuff. So I think yeah, I don't know, I just realized that those films were super influential, but it's taken this time to realize, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, obviously influences come from everywhere. Like they come from conversations with friends, and they come from movies, like the 14 movies I watched during quarantine, you know. There's just
Which
like,
one would you say was the most remarkable film out of the 14?
I watched a film called Lady Snowblood that was kind of mind-blowing, because it's
Where is it from?
It's a Japanese movie from the 70s, I think, and it's weird because it's basically Kill Bill. It's like all of the inspirations for Kill Bill came from this movie. Like even the soundtrack, like he just kind of, Tarantino just took it, obviously reworked it, but it's just like a really beautiful film, and the soundtrack is amazing, and yeah, the scenes, he basically just like pulled scenes out of it and just reshot them with other actors. Like I loved that, and I saw a film called Mogori no Mori, which is, I think, Morning Forest, translates to Morning Forest, which was like she's called Naomi, I can't remember the name of the director, but that was a really beautiful film, like really simple. So 2 Japanese movies, I think, were probably the films that I felt most inspired by while I was locked away.
Amazing.
Yeah, Naomi Kawase, I think, is her name. You should watch that too. It's good.
What was my next question? What would you say is, you know, from the early stage of your experimenting with as a Super 8 to now would be like something that you think has stayed aesthetically or whatever, like a sense of Luke that has stayed?
Well, I was never really like formally trained in photography or video. I picked up a camera and just kind of figured it out, and I think that side of me is always present, like a bit of like a DIY kind of throwing things around, there being like a sort of rawness to stuff, and like working with maybe what you have, and yeah, I don't know, like I guess that's a thread. I feel quite comfortable like just slinging cameras around and stuff, but I'm trying to step away from that now and work with collaborators. So yeah, like this dream film I did earlier this year, it was suddenly like very polished and shiny, and people were like, whoa, like what's that, like that doesn't really look like your stuff. So I wanted to transition into like much bigger production stuff, but still have that kind of edge, which is the challenge, I guess, now, but I don't know, what do you think?
No, I think that makes sense what you're saying about this sort of raw, experimental, like kind of dreamscapey, but at the same time you can tell it's a little gritty, like,
Yeah.
And I like that you said you work with what you have, and it's not necessarily just like even the tools or equipment, but there's like the intimacy between, I think, you and the people in it. There's also that, and whether it's they're close friends or they're like a taxi driver, it is, I don't know, there's also a sense of closeness, I feel, and intimacy with whether these characters, because they're part of a cityscape. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's true. I guess, yeah, you mentioned the taxi videos, the Helmut Lang ones that I did with my friend Alex Lees. It was weird because this brand Helmut Lang, like I didn't really know very much about them before I did the project. But so they were wearing the product and stuff. There was a bit of like product in the video, but yeah, I was so interested in the taxi drivers, and I feel like maybe that came across. It was like they were the main, they were on the main kind of the platform, and clothes came second, which obviously isn't going to work every time, but yeah, I think it's like that's probably true. Like I do care about my subjects,
and the city, I feel like that also plays a big role in.
Yeah, for sure. I do. I really.
It's like a character in itself.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I really do love the city a lot, and I feel like conscious of when I'm making stuff about Hong Kong to not abuse it, take advantage of it. I want to celebrate it and love it in my work, and like I think it's important to do that, to be aware of it. I mean, I really care about it, so I'm glad it comes across that way.
I never really thought about it before, but as we're talking about it, like it's also becoming more apparent to me, whether it's the flower in the recent video that you showed, and the lockdown mashup, the relationship between, I guess, the flower and the girl or something. All these rooftops too, even the skateboard, when you guys are young, there's like this relationship to objects, and that being part of a larger scenescape of wherever they are. But that, which I was going to ask, you've lived in a few cities in your life, how would you say that they've informed who you are and your sense of aesthetics or language, stylistic language?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like on a like.
So it just, you've lived in Japan and in Hong Kong and in the UK.
Yeah. Okay. And I've obviously traveled a bit, but I remember leaving home and moving to Japan when I was in my early 20s, and arriving and thinking like, whoa, this place is so different and so exciting, and then gradually it became normal, and it kind of, it became like life there became normal life, and then going back to the UK and seeing the UK through this new lens of like, oh, okay, like this place that I always felt was like normal isn't that normal, So I think the value of living in different places is that obviously it gives you a a viewpoint, like a new perspective on what makes a place special or different, or and that no place is like normal. So I guess that's one thing, like even making work in the UK now, it's like I have a different lens that I'm seeing it through, which I think is valuable. But yeah, I mean, Hong Kong has become such a big part of my identity, and when I've been spending more time in the UK, people are like, oh, how are you going to make work now that you're not in Hong Kong? It's like, it's so much a part of what I do.
Do you agree with that? It's like that it's so, I mean, it's part of your work, but that it defines your work?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It's, I learned most of what I know now here in Hong Kong. When I arrived, I didn't have that much experience, and I've learned everything that I know here. And I think, the foundations that I've built here are foundations I'm taking to other places, but it's been interesting adapting to the UK, and trying to make work there, and I don't know, there's something that always pulls me back here as well. So, and I feel like I'm kind of like I've become like a sort of bridge or something between both places. And but yeah, I guess like the example you brought up with the flowers that I made with my friends James and Julia in the UK. When I first arrived in Hong Kong, I didn't have budget. I had this little camera, and I was just sort of throwing it around and putting it at weird angles and stuff like that. And then we made that video during lockdown. And the way that I used to make videos wasn't the right way to make it. It was like I wasn't trained like to hold these cameras and shoot things properly. That things were out of focus, and then I'd be in the edit. How do I make this out of focus shot work? And like stitching these little bits together. And I think I did that with the flowers video because it was during lockdown. We couldn't rent anything, and I couldn't get camera guys, so we were kind of filming it on phones and sort of threading it together in the edit. And I feel like there's something very Hong Kong about that as well. How you kind of see people sort of taping or tying bits together, fixing things. Like there's a kind of mentality here of kind of, I don't know how you would define it, but do you know what I mean? You'll see people kind of with like carts that are like decades old that they keep fixing and mending and tying bits together, and it works, so maybe like there's something in that spirit that kind of I've applied to my work too, and I kind of like pulling things from different places, interesting weird places as well. Like there was a video that I did a few years ago, the fabric one for On Pedder, and the I wanted there to be a poem in it that my friend Ming wrote, but I couldn't figure out who to record it, who could record it, and I was on a plane back from the UK, and the lady on the flight was making an announcement, and I was like, I think that's the right voice. I think I want it. So I went up to her and asked her, and I had this Cathay flight attendant do the voiceover that she sent on WhatsApp. But
are they trained how to articulate and enunciate?
Yeah, they are.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, so like pulling weird things and parts of. And I also like, even if I'm working in the UK, I still want to work with Hong Kongers and collaborate with Hong Kong artists and bring them to the UK, if that makes sense. So I did a music video in the UK recently for a British band, but collaborated with Royce and Heidi Huang, so Hong Kong artists who, so that's what I mean by bridge, I guess.
What did they do for the video?
Royce built this kind of underwater CGI landscape with these like fish characters, and Heidi animated a couple of scenes of the band and stuff. So they're both super talented artists, and it was cool to be able to work with them that way. And obviously I want to keep these Hong Kong collaborations going, even if I'm not here so much, but
Since we're talking about collaborations and friendships within a community, do you want to talk more about different types of collaborations and how Hong Kong's sense of, community really also plays a role in the stuff that you create?
Yeah. Like another great thing about Hong Kong is this like collaborative community thing. that there's a lot of support.
Do you find that also kind of unique to the city?
Yeah. I feel like when people arrive from London or New York, they're almost a bit like taken back by it, that people are so supportive and helpful, you know, and willing to just sort of help, and it's like a really great thing about this place, you know. But yeah, like what was your question? Sorry, like.
So you've done like a lot of, you mentioned okay.
Yeah.
You've mentioned, I mean, working with Heidi and Royce. I guess what are some ways that you've worked together with people and created new things, and what are those dynamics? You know, that is both, I think, special to your work, but also part of what Hong Kong is. So
Yeah. Well, I really love collaborating with people, you know. Like, I find it sort of more challenging sometimes when people are like, you do something and come up with an idea and do it all yourself. It's like, I quite like the back and forth and like the conversations, which is like music videos, you're working with an artist, a musician, it's their music, and you're kind of adapting that vision into, you know. But yeah, there's a lot of just like support and help, and I think I think the really nice thing about being a video director as well is that it has to be collaborative. You have to rely on other people. You can't really do everything yourself, and you get to work with musicians, and you get to work with, you know, set designers and people that have these great specialities and bring something, you know, to a project.
What is the process of, for instance, working on a music video for you? Like, do you listen to music and then you speak to them about a concept, or like how does the idea come out until?
Yeah, I feel like actually with music videos, I feel like your role should actually be to like support the song, like, so not take away from it or try to outdo it. It's like offer a space for the song to like breathe and be, if that makes sense. And so I've only actually done like 2 or 3 music videos. Like last year, I decided I'm going to try, and the first one was with Aya Kalumi, the Japanese singer, who I met just by accident. I was doing another shoot, and then she and her boyfriend, I was shooting them kissing actually, and yeah, we just had a conversation. I was like, I kind of want to make a music video, and she was like, cool, you should do one for me. And then last year I was going back and forth doing this video, but yeah, I don't know. It's just conversations that you have with people, I guess, and what was the inspiration for the song, or what did you see in your head when you thought of it, you know. And it's like you have to kind of work very closely and hands-on with the artist to sort of bring their idea to life or their vision to life. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, collaboration.
You don't have to. I mean,
it's an interesting question, but I'm trying to figure out like. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like how to answer it, or I guess it's just like it happens. I've never really thought about it. It's like it's all just comes from conversations and yeah, like pushing ideas back and forth, and then it starts to build and become a thing, and then there's like a moment where you're like, okay, cool, this is, I think we're onto something here with this, you know. Yeah.
So you recently said that you put a pause on taking photographs for a while. You said it's very difficult. I mean, you kept making films and doing video work, but you stopped taking photographs. Why do you think taking photographs is difficult?
Well, I started as a photographer, and then video kind of came like off of photography. I basically just hit a wall with photography, where like when I first arrived in Hong Kong, I was going out and taking street photos of, you know, Hong Kong, like people on the streets and stuff. It was like documentary street photography, and then I was kind of doing it commercially, and I think 2 things happened. One, I worked on a really horrible commercial project that went so badly, you know, and I was like, okay, I don't think I can do that. And then I also kind of hit a bit of a creative wall where I didn't feel like going out and taking photos of people anymore, and I kind of felt the limitations of photography. You know, like there's only so much you can do with a photo. So I just like I just didn't want to take the camera out anymore. I think I like freaked myself out by like failing on a project, and then also just like on a kind of, I don't know, creative level, I didn't know what I wanted to take photos of. So I took like 3 or 4 years off and I stopped taking photos, and I just gave myself a break. But this year, actually, I've had like a bit of a breakthrough where suddenly I just want to take photos again, you know, and I can't stop thinking about photography, and I'm like so ready. Like the limitations that I felt before of like what, you know, you can only do this, and now the things that I find exciting about it again, it's like it's really quite simple.
Like
you know?
like what's
Well, like,
what's
you know, it's
shifted
just I remember, like, photos can't talk, they can't say anything, they can't play music, you know, it's like a still, and I reached a point where I just didn't really want those restrictions anymore, and video just naturally kind of stepped forward, and yeah, and you could pull all those exciting other elements together and, you know, apply it to it, but now I'm just I quite like the simplicity of like the challenge of like how do you make a good photo, like how do you get the good photo? You know, it's really hard, but when it happens and when it works, it's really, yeah, it's great, you know. So I think I don't know what happened, but I think my voice or my confidence is just like after like 4 or 5 years of not taking pictures, it's like, yeah, I just want to take photos now.
And do you find the photos themselves have changed?
Yeah, they're not as literal or not as documentary. They're starting to feel a bit weird, and they're just like they're slightly strange and surreal and staged, you know. So I'm bringing in elements that feel a little bit off, you know. Whereas I think I used to try and take really beautiful photos that felt very natural and reflected like reality, and now I'm like trying to do something else. Yeah, I want to do a book as well. I'm working on a photo book at the moment, and
Tell us more.
well, actually, I'm working on a couple of things right now, photo projects. One of them is a calendar. I just had the idea the other day, but a Dai Got Joe, like kind of hunks and babes calendar of like the uncles, like really buff uncles, and then like the ladies that work in the area too. There's just loads of characters, so I want to make a calendar for them, like 2021 calendar of portraits, and then the other one is something I want to do in Japan, but obviously I need to be able to go to Japan to do it, but it's kind of a work in progress. But yeah, it's based on I don't really know how to describe it. I don't want to give it away either, but it's really exciting, and it's very research based. I think prior to this whole COVID situation, I talked about the hamster wheel, just being stuck, like running, and never like doing the next job, and never really having a moment to stop. And I never took research very seriously. And then with COVID, it's like, okay, the wheel stopped, and then I was kind of left to think a bit more about why I'm doing something, or, you know. So I did, in the UK, I did like loads and loads of research on a specific topic in Japan. And so my Google Maps is just like full of pins right now, but I just need to get myself back there in order to sort of do it. But yeah, like I didn't really used to do much research or pre-prep, and so that's really been like a shift or a change. It's like, obviously it's very, very important to think before you do. Yeah.
You were also working on another personal project before when you were doing residency. Is that still?
With Tiffany? Yeah, well, so I kind of have realized that I want to make movies. In the next couple of years, I want to work towards directing feature films and stuff, writing and directing feature films. So the residency that I started, that I didn't really complete, but it was kind of like planting the initial seed of like, how do you write something? And it has to start with you just putting ideas on paper and trial and error. Some things work, some things don't. But yeah, that's ongoing, obviously. It's like I wrote a story before COVID happened about being locked in a room in Hong Kong when there was a storm that went on for like 5 or 6 days, and these two people being stuck in the room. And then I worked with a collaborator and friend, Hui Lin, and he kind of adapted it, and but then COVID happened and everyone was locked inside and everybody was writing stuff about being, and it just felt
so
kind of
funny.
so much less relevant because it was like this pre-COVID mindset, and it just didn't. We were trying to adapt it, but it was like we've missed the boat. We should have made this before this happened, and then everyone could have been watching it on Netflix or whatever. But yeah, so we've kind of started again. But I really love telling stories, and I'm always like trying to tell these crazy stories of this thing and that thing, and so it feels natural that I should start making movies, and I'm gonna start with a short. So more or less, yeah, I'm writing this short that's kind of nearly finished, and then I've been making these really small, simple clips that I'll release like soon, which are kind of again surreal and scripted and staged and with actors and stuff, so yeah, that's where I'm going basically. It's like movies, watch this space.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm just scrolling through questions to see which ones we haven't answered and still relevant. What are some of the most memorable collaborations or creations of that, I guess, maybe either just memorable because of the experience or that you've grown through, or just like realizations or something?
Quite a lot, I guess. I mean, there was one that I did quite early on when I first arrived. I want to shout out to Valerie Chow, because I didn't really know anyone in Hong Kong, and somehow she found some photos on a blog, and then I got this email, and it was like from Lane Crawford Group or whatever, and it was like, we want you to come in and meet us, and I turned up in this room, and there's this like really beautiful woman, who worked there, and she's kind of like in charge of these big creative projects, and I was so scared, but she was like, I saw your blog, it's cool, do you want to do a shoot? And so I started working with her, and she was the first person that gave me, because I didn't really have any experience, but she was like, I'm going to give you this whole book, this magazine of photos to shoot for like this pedazine it was called. They don't make it anymore, but yeah, like she just gave me this platform and this opportunity that was like a really big like game changer project, I guess. And she also just believed in me, and we still work together, and she's always just very like open, just do your thing. And then I guess like the Boys of Hong Kong project with Alex Least was also like a big one, because I didn't know her, but she found me somehow. I think she saw the Yap Pit video, and then she DM'd me, and she was like, I'm doing this photo book about boys and identity in Hong Kong, and I kind of want to make a film too, but I haven't really done it. Do you want to do the film? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And we were just going out meeting these cool, like beautiful, interesting boys, and she was shooting the stills, and I'd film them, and then we'd chat to them, and then we had all this like exciting footage, and then I spent months editing it and trying to figure out. It was like a long process, and I mean, I'm so happy that she asked me to do it, because that was really a project that kind of changed the course of my life, really, because we were just kind of doing our thing, and then it got launched and loads of people saw it, and it was also like, I feel like we both just poured so much energy into it, and it resonated with a lot of people, and it circulated outside of Hong Kong as well, so it kind of opened me up to other places as well, and we've continued to collaborate over the years, we did the taxi videos together, and we've done some Marc Jacobs videos. It's always like there's just a really good energy when we work together, and we kind of, I don't know, I think we make quite interesting stuff together,
How do you strike a balance between the corporate side of what you make and like the artistic creative part?
It's a bit of a funny like line. I guess like I came from, my foundations were built doing commercial work, it's like I don't have a background in art or anything, but I kind of I came at it from making commercials and stuff, doing commercial projects, and then I kind of discovered art a bit later. I was doing stuff with you at Asia Art Archive, and Parasite and stuff, and kind of, oh, this art world's kind of interesting, and started looking into it a bit. And then I ran that space, Holy Motors, that I did with Ming Lin, and that was kind of like me doing an art foundation course, I think, because I got to work closely with artists. But I don't know, I quite like pushing commercial work to feel more like art, and then when I do art projects, try and make it look like an ad. So like, I was asked to do an artwork for a gallery a few years ago, and I just basically made a music video. So I quite like the line, basically, and I like pushing both. So I've done like commercial projects that don't really look like adverts at all, but it's a weird balancing act. But I've also like learnt so many skills from doing commercial work. Like it's equipped me with what I need to move towards just doing my own stuff, like making movies and stuff. It's like I didn't go to film school, so I learnt everything by working, basically. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Just probably a few more questions. How would you, is there anything specific about the Hong Kong creative community that you find is unique to the city? Or how would you describe it?
I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, but it's about that kind of that collaborative energy and everybody supporting each other, so I think that's kind of what defines it. And there's also like things can happen so quickly here as well. It's like so much energy that kind of fuels things, and everybody's got these little personal projects that are just like, bang, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of like love and support, basically, but how would you define it? I mean, I feel like it's always defining itself and redefining itself and growing and evolving constantly. Like, in the 7 years I've been here, it's like the voice is always changing and adapting and growing,
How would you, when we ask this to all of our guests, how would you define this generation?
I feel like we're kind of the like digital guinea pigs that have kind of, no one's ever lived through all this sort of social media stuff and this digital age, and we're kind of the generation that are being experimented on by this very strange thing, this technology. And I think there are good things, there are bad things obviously, but there are also like really good things that are coming out of it. It's like we're in quite a radical era, where there's this kind of like digital enlightenment or something happening, where people are kind of, I don't really know how I would describe it exactly, but something's happening. We're living through something, it's being defined as we speak, and it's quite exciting. It's scary sometimes, but I reckon it's gonna be a good thing in the long run, I reckon. So I don't know if that answers it.
I mean, What is your biggest personal realization in the last year? These crazy times. You were here until January, so you lived through insane times in Hong Kong. That, I don't know, and now.
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I mean, I know I've literally just sat here and talked about work like the entire time, but like I keep talking about the hamster wheel. I think once it stopped, I realized that I don't want to go back to that type of life, like where I'm working non-stop. I want to focus on just living my life and sharing time with people that I care about, and not being so like work obsessed. And like all of my New Year's resolutions used to be, I've got to get this job, I'm going to work with these guys, I'm going to do this and then that. And actually, like when I thought about it the other day, someone asked what would it be, and it was just like, like take care of myself and spend more time with my family, and you know what I mean, and live your life. Go to places, do things, and don't bring work with you, basically. So I think that would be for me, I guess the realization that I've had is that this pause has, obviously there have been lots of this like terrible things with this pandemic, but the pause has been a good thing, I think. Just like slow down, guys. Chill. That's it.
Should we? I mean, I could ask one or two more questions, but I feel like that's also a nice place to end it. James, what do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. Alicia Lee from Facebook asked, do you have any plans to direct a Marvel movie?
Okay, so
Marvel.
that's Alicia Lee from Facebook asked, do you have any plans to direct a Marvel movie?
I don't want to do that, actually. Like, that isn't the thing that makes me feel excited. I think I want to be a kind of Jim Jarmusch type guy. Like an auteur. I wouldn't want to do that sort of selling out, making a Marvel. I've never really even seen a Marvel film, to be honest.
But you can adapt it to your own style.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe.
I don't know if you know that Drozowski was supposed to direct Dune, and his version was like 14 hours.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, nah, we can't do that.
Yeah.
But to adapt the Marvel movie to your own style.
Oh, I
But
mean,
he's
that
never
would be
even seen
cool.
one.
I
But
probably
do you read their
have.
comics?
I can't remember which. Like, I've seen Spider-Man and stuff,
Yeah.
but I mean, I guess if you put it like that, if I had full creative freedom to do whatever I wanted, then I might consider it. But I don't think so. Yeah, it's not the sort of thing that makes me feel super excited. But I'll think about it.
Is there something? I mean, the question that I could have asked is there somebody you'd really love to work with?
Right now there is actually. I really want to work with a musician called Shintaro Sakamoto. If you're watching,
Shintaro Sakamoto.
yeah, I want to make a music video for him, and I also feel like he would be the perfect guy to make the soundtrack to my films. So I need to get the music video done and meet him, and then we can collaborate on films together in the future. So him right now, but apart from that, can't really think of anyone else. No.
Any other questions, James? Do you have any questions?
I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, it's good.
Trying
Okay.
to think if there's anything else.
Do you want to? Is there anything that you want to say?
Don't think so.
Final thoughts?
It felt a little bit like a love letter to the city, actually. Like, I really feel your love for the city. Maybe it's because you left and you're back for
Yeah.
a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, there's a nostalgia.
There is, yeah. It's true. I mean, it was, like I talked about it before, but coming out of quarantine, I felt like so high being back, It's like walking on the streets just felt like trippy and amazing, and I just, I did feel so happy, and I guess I am kind of leaving, but I don't think I can. It's hard. It's really hard to leave Hong Kong.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Luke, for joining us today. And thank you for those who were listening. Thank you, Alicia, for the
Thanks,
question.
Alicia.
Thanks, James, for being behind the camera all the time and setting up.
Thank you,
That's it.
guys.
It's a wrap.
Yay.